So let's get right into things here. Pierre Palo, the man who swept last week, will start on pole, and Jay, always a favorite to win in Group 2, starts in second place. Mayer and Craig start on the second row, and then John and David Goodrich back with us after a week off. And Aiden will round out the field in the back as we go on board now with John coming to the line. Here we go, they're on the gas, green flag in the air, we're underway with Laguna Seca. The second round of the season is go. Up to the Andretti hairpin at turn 2. So far, so good. We can hear it at least. The brakes squealing around as the top 2 go completely wide.
Wow.
And I believe Jay just goes to the inside and takes the lead. Pierre Palo completely blew the first corner, and they stack up a little bit further back. So Jay takes the lead with Mayer up to second place. Side by side, just behind the 22 of Pierre Palo.
Very unlike him to make a move like that. Last week, he kept a very consistent race, and for him to make a mistake like that on turn 1 is very surprising.
It was, yeah. He was completely lights out last week. I guess he just got caught off a little bit by the cold tires, or the line just wasn't very good, or he panicked seeing Mayer coming in the mirror, but either way, he dropped down. Meanwhile, we're battling for the lead. Mayer's going for it on the inside. As we come up to turn 6, I believe he's going to get Jay right here. That is close. Through turn 6, as Mayer pops over the curb, and he gets into Jay and shoves Jay off. He's going through the gravel trap. He gets back on, and that's going to give Pierre Palo a chance. Craig almost ran right into the back of Jay after he came back on the track. Now, down to the corkscrew, the hardest turn on the track and probably in this series, as you can see them completely stack up going through there. Now, down through the dumpster turns. Through turn 9. And down through turn 10, and the final corner coming at turn 11. So Mayer going to exit with the lead at the end of the first lap. Had a bit of ding-donging going on in there to start it off, but still, we got about 4 cars at least right with it. Meanwhile, they're side-by-side back there going at it. Let's go back to David Goodrich here, as we forgot to also mention Mike as well in the 11. He hadn't loaded up until he finally did when we went through the starting grid, but he has gone back to last now, so not the greatest start here. David Goodrich looking to the inside, couldn't get through on Aiden. Aiden drives it wide though on the exit of turn 2. That's going to cost him 1, maybe 2 spots as John has to negotiate the outside. And he does get him. And just as I said, he goes off. David Goodrich was also off just ahead of him. So John now, who's normally, you see him as well, Christian, he might not be completely on pace, but he's always a driver to just keep it clean and not make any mistakes, so that's a little bit surprising to see it from him so far.
This is bringing out the fine details in every driver.
Yes, it will. On this track, you know it's all about momentum and keeping it clean. Up front, Mayer leads still, but Pierre Palo smells blood in the water as we get back to the corkscrew. Let's see if he can close this in. Within a second, Craig's holding his own past Jay. It looks like he's also adapted to these cars pretty nicely. He definitely was last week, although Jay actually has gotten through on him. You can see him back there. Just as I say that, I wonder if something just happened to Craig there. Yeah, there he is. Lost a bit of time, but not too much. I think Jay was just able to get through on him. Now he tries to go back to the front. David Goodrich runs up in 5th. I think something happened to Aiden there. We fly back past the line and start to get to the personal best. Nobody really set any personal best on the first lap. I guess because it was all a bit unclean. So fastest. Wow, they tied for the fastest lap of the race. Wow, I've never seen that. That is dead even. Wow. In iRacing only you can see this. This very rarely happens, but I guess it's on it now. So both these guys setting some really, really close times. Let's see if Pierre Palo can now start to close in. I think Mayer, yes, he did drop a wheel right there. You saw him squirming around on the exit of the corner as Pierre Palo gets slowly closer and closer. Let's see if he can get a run right here. He got a nice corner right there through turn 5. Not sure if he's close enough. And again, the draft just doesn't really work with this Hyundais. As Mayer dipped a wheel on the entrance to turn 6. But it didn't really affect him anything. It looks like he pulled the lead out, surprisingly. So, however that worked, it did work. Pierre Palo closes in just a tad once we get to the corkscrew. And I'll go to Christian here. Christian, what can you tell us about the corkscrew as well? How hard is that corner on this track?
even like at the apex, you can't see anything. Going down, blind corner. It's all about feel, so it really brings out the best in each driver.
And also, if somebody ends up spinning right ahead of you, well, there's not a lot you can do there because that is barely enough to fit one car in there, let alone two, as Mayer almost drove off the track at turn 11. He didn't cost himself too much momentum. Pierpaolo's still not close enough to make the move for the lead. But he was quite quicker that last lap around. Jay's also setting some pretty decent pace as well. Able to keep up the pace with the 2 leaders, but he's got a bit to make up with after getting put off the track on the first lap. 5 minutes down already. These laps take a lot longer than we think here at Laguna Seca. So now if you're Pierpaolo, Christian, where do you want to try and set up this move here? What's the best passing point on this track?
Going into the upcoming corners, it's very difficult to make a move since it's such high-speed corners, but possibly down the straightaway and maybe going into the last corner, there's a possibility, but it will be definitely challenging.
Yeah, I think it will. Although we saw at last year's IndyCar finale, at least, Joseph Newgarden make a ton of passes at the corkscrew. So it is possible, but you really need to throw it in there. And you have to sort of do it late as well to catch the other driver off by surprise. Because it widens up a little bit before getting into the corkscrew, and then you get into the corkscrew and it narrows right down again.
High risk, high reward.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, Mayer actually pulled out a little bit. What I've been noticing is he gets it really turned well through turn 6 and able to beat Pierpaolo out of there every single time. So he's always not under threat for a pass once we get to the corkscrew. I'll tell you what, though, it looks like Jay is starting to close in a little bit right there. He is lurking, closing this in, and he might be the fastest car on the track right now as we come back past the line. Pierpaolo just has not been able to quite advance more on Mayers. So there's Craig in the background in 4th. He's kind of lost a bit of touch with the leaders. Yes, Mayer does go a bit quicker this time. Jay really sets the pace with a 1:33.1. As Pierpaolo, a bit of a different line there. And again, Mayer beats him out of there very nicely as well. If you saw it, Pierpaolo locked it up and ended up just kind of blowing turn 1 a little bit. Let's go a little bit further back in the field. Let's go on board now with David Goodrich as he negotiates turn 2 at the Andretti hairpin. He actually dropped a wheel there in the exit as well. John and Mike still with each other back here. Aiden's dropped down the order. I think he made a mistake a little bit earlier on. This is the closest battle on the track right now, barring the battle at the front. But that is just oh, that was close as Mike hop, skipping a jump over the curb right there. He almost lost it, but he was able to save it and continues on his way. And again, he makes a mistake and ends up going through the sand at turn 5. So now, I'm not sure if something's happened there, but he looks like he's really off the pace.
And that's confusing. He went off on the inside. You have to turn in early for that.
You don't normally see that at all.
Not at all. No.
And I think I might go up here a little bit right here. If we're looking at intervals, it looked like something just happened to Jay right there. I'm wondering if he just made a mistake. I'm not sure how close he is to the leaders now. That interval changed. He was under 2 seconds. Now he's 4.5 seconds back. We'll see what happens in the lap time here. But I'm pretty sure he was closer to the front two than what he was right now, especially with Craig looking a lot closer. So I think he did make a mistake. Yes, he did. He lost a good 4 seconds on that last lap, so the fastest man on the track isn't anymore. And if you look again at the front, Mayer and Pierpaolo are separated by 1/100th of a second. Those lap times are insanely close between these two. But Pierpaolo has started to close the gap back in now. It just looks like he almost made a mistake right there. Just hard to try and close the gap in because it's so even on the throttle and brakes every corner you go around this track.
It's a waiting game. You have to wait for the driver ahead of you to make the mistake or just simply be faster.
Yes. And in this case, that's quite the difficult task to do. So, but if someone does slip up and make a mistake, you just got to pounce for it. Because once again, Mayer's pulled out the gap. It just looks like through here, he's just been able to negotiate a little bit better. He pulled 3/10 out in that corner alone. As we get back to the corkscrew.
From those tire marks coming out of the corkscrew, I think that's where Jay actually messed up last lap.
Yeah, I believe you're right. He just completely got on the gas maybe a little bit too hard or tried to turn it a little bit too hard, and it just came out right from underneath him. He may have not have looped it, but he half spun, and, well, that'll still cost you a monumental amount of time. So And you don't really have a lot of that in this race, even though we haven't gotten to the 10-minute mark yet. But you don't want to be in a hole and trying to dig yourself out of it. You still got a chance, but it's a lot more slimmer than it was earlier on. As Mayer steps it up this time and sets his personal best lap of the race in and pulls out a few tenths. Now the gap's over a second to Pierpaolo, who runs it way wide at turn 2. That's the third time he's done that in this race. He is really struggling with that second corner. And remember, when you do go into that second corner, it's really, you don't stop turning at all because you have turn 1 to negotiate through, and then you just, as you stop turning the wheel, then you jump on the brakes. So it's a lot of things for the driver to do in a short amount of time. So let's go back a little bit further. Craig, kind of all under the radar by himself right now in fourth, but sometimes that's where you want to be, just minding your own business, nothing happened to you, because remember, the bonus points for a 0x can boost you up like crazy. That is 8 extra bonus points if you manage to pull that off. Come critical at the end of the season. If you do that, especially each week, that would really boost your chances. As we go back to John here ahead of Mike, that gap is sort of stabilized right now. Aiden's a little bit further back behind this group. I'm not sure if we saw Craig dip a wheel right there. Nope, he's still running fine. So we go back to Mike now. Now let's go back to Aiden, running an 8th spot right now. I think he made a mistake, and again, he's still learning the ropes as it is. This is his first season. So continuing on his way, you can see it right there even with the input. Maybe not as confident as the other drivers are going through the corkscrew like that.
It's all about seat time. The more you have, the better you are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you've known it as well as I do. A lot of the seat time in these things, it's radically different to what else you drive and stuff. And with switching every season from car to car, you kind of have to change your driving style even to get used to these type of cars.
Like for these leagues, we have 25 minutes for practice. If, let's say, the best driver skips that, it brings the pack, if not to him, if not past him.
Yes, because you don't have any track time, and everybody else has spent a good 25 minutes or more getting to learn the track and knowing what their inputs are.
Exactly.
So it really makes a difference. As we go back to Mayer, who's 8 minutes away from his first victory. And he's pulling out that gap on Pierpaolo. That hasn't stabilized. He's been stretching it out the last couple laps. It's really not Pierpaolo that he needs to worry about. It's Jay that he's got to worry about because he has been beaten in the last couple laps. But that half spin is still proven costly earlier on. I don't know if he's going to have enough time to get there, even though that he's a good 5 seconds back. And with the pace that Mayer's running right now, like, you sort of have to catch him like almost 8/10 a lap, maybe a bit more, to run that down right now. And that's if Mayer doesn't keep improving his lap times as it is right now, if it stays the same. Just as I say that, he goes even quicker. Let's see what Jay turns now when he gets to the line. And no, this time actually Mayer stepped it out, so looking good for the man in green right now. Not a lot of pressure from behind. He's extended the gap to 2 seconds. Let's go once again back to Craig in 4th spot. Here he is. Still minding his own business. Field's kind of spread out now. He's got no one around him. He's a good 16 seconds back of the race leader. Actually, just as I say that, you can see David Goodrich starting to get closer and closer to him. Last lap round wasn't the best for Craig. It was only a 1:39, so lost a good 6 seconds to the leader. I'm wondering if he made a mistake there. David Goodrich continues to close in. Remember, this is his first time in these cars this season. He did not make the first race. And we'll see that with Chris later on in group number 1. As we close in on the final 6 minutes of this first race at Laguna Seca. As Pierpaolo started to just reel the gap in a little bit. It's down to 1.6 again. But he had it a lot closer earlier. It was down to a half a second now. And I think Pierpaolo just missed a shift through there. He lost a ton of momentum. I saw that thing slow way down. You could see the gap completely went up. He almost lost a second in that sector alone.
And Jay is right up against him.
He is right on him now. So now that takes, and as a driver, that changes your preference to, I am driving to catch the person in front of me, to I have to worry about the person behind me.
Exactly.
And now it's like you're going to be looking more up in the mirror, you're more paranoid about what's happening behind you, and you're more prone to make mistakes.
Exactly.
As opposed to when you're driving towards the driver in front of you, you feel more in the zone. And it's just a case with a lot of drivers. You just tend to drive faster when someone's in front of you because you have that urgency to try and catch them.
When you have a rabbit to chase.
Exactly. We see it a lot in karting. We see it a lot with these cars. We see it a lot in real-life racing, where if you're the driver behind, and the slipstream also helps as well. When you're the driver behind, you always feel like you have that extra motivation to go get the person in front of you, and it in turn just kind of makes you go that little bit quicker, and you're a little bit more confident with the car. As Jay has closed that gap down to 1 second now. This would be a few more points for him if he was able to get Pierpaolo. He still has the fastest lap. He actually went into the 132s the last lap around, but it was not a clean lap, so it did not get purple, but that doesn't really matter to him because he's still got the fastest lap of the race. So he's just outdoing himself right now, but he needs to keep this pace up. He's dropped it down. It's only down to 4 seconds to Mayer, but time's running out at the 15.30 minute mark. Mayer just has to keep it clean through these next just over 4 minutes, and he's home free. Back past the line we come. Podium looks to be maybe set in stone here as Mayer does pick it up again, but so did Pierpaolo that last lap. They both were, and look at how close that is to the fastest lap. Pierpaolo almost nabbed it. He missed it out by 0.003 of a second. That is close. Whoa! He was really on the edge right there out of turn 2. Whipped the back end out right there and almost dipped a wheel. And he does dip a wheel on the exit. I think that was turn 3. Out of turn 4, up the short chute and up to turn 5. I don't think Pierpaolo's going to get there, although I think Mayer can sort of breathe it a bit right now. He doesn't need to be completely on edge. He has more breathing room than he's had in a little while, so he doesn't have to be looking in the mirror that much anymore. And like I said, Pierpaolo's probably going to be more focused on Jay as he dips a wheel again, this time out of turn 6. Back to the corkscrew. It looks like Jay's been able to get through the corkscrew very nicely. You can see that gap close in right there. I don't know if he's just left the braking a little bit later or it's his line, but he has definitely closed that gap in.
Under a second.
Yes. It's down to half a second. Just through those couple of dumpster corners alone. A third of a second now as we get to the final corner. 3 minutes to go and Jay's on the attack. Pierpaolo sure, if he didn't know it before, he knows it now. You can see him start to swerve around a little bit. Jay a little bit lower on the track into the 132s that last lap around. So extending his fastest lap margin by a little bit. Look at how much more confident he was on the brakes right there going into turn 2. It just looks like Pierpaolo's just had a struggle getting through there. Jay's not quite there. He almost had a fender up alongside of him. Couldn't make it happen. Now, can he get an undercut move right here? Not quite. So now it just looks like Mayer has to breathe this one home. He's up 3.5 seconds. Pierpaolo on the defensive. Jay already half a car length to the outside. He's there. Can he hold this? Still there, just at the quarter panel. As we race up to turn 6. I'm not sure if this is how he was on the first lap as Pierpaolo nails the curb around the outside. Jay with a nose ahead as we head up to the corkscrew. And we got Aiden off just in front of them. He just goes down a lap right there as Jay gets clear around the outside. Great stuff, but he overdrove it into the corkscrew. Pierpaolo coming right back at him. Now Pierpaolo's got to be the one to negotiate the outside or undercut him back. He runs into the bumper. Now he ducks to the inside. Nice block pass right there. He made sure Jay couldn't get back to the apex. And I think Jay missed a shift too. As we come by the line, 1 lap to go now, I believe. Mayer just has to negotiate about 10 more corners. And he's got this one. Can Jay get back to Pierpaolo after that amazing battle last lap around? But that was really impressive to see him do that on the outside of turn 6 right there. Remember, that was the same corner that he went off on earlier. Now, albeit, Mayer didn't give him a lot of room. But Jay just was able to drive it right along there. The problem was I think he drove it in too hard into the corkscrew, and it completely ended up letting Pierre Paolo get back past him. Now he might not have a chance to get back to him.
It's hard as it is to pass on the inside in that corner.
Yes.
Having the balls to go around the outside, that's amazing.
It is. As you can see it right there with Pierre Paolo on the inside, if you get squeezed enough, you nail the curb and it'll completely throw you off the balance. But Jay is not done. He's coming back. Meanwhile, up front, he's up by 5.6 seconds now. His time is about to expire. He doesn't really need to worry about anything back on. He just needs to breathe this one out. No risks. This battle for second ain't over, though. Jay trying to close in a bit more. I think he was a bit more tentative, though, going into the corkscrew, but I don't think it's going to happen. Pierre Paolo beat him that time. Meanwhile, up to Mayer out of turn 10. And the left-hander at turn 11. Out of the corner. Well, he nailed that one nearly wire to wire. Mayer takes his first checkered flag of the season and gets it done at Laguna Seca. Pierre Paolo just holds off Jay for second. They finish in second and third.